The Wizards and Denver Nuggets make a pretty interesting trade here. Early in the day, this one went down. So Will Barton and Monte Morris going to the Wizards for Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Ish Smith here. So a nice 2-for-2 deal. Caldwell-Pope and Barton, probably the headliners, going different directions, obviously, in this trade. So I'll start off with Will Barton. Last season, pretty good season. And you know what you're going to get from Barton. A good three-point shooter, a guy who could score the basketball in great spurts off the bench here, and also could rebound a decent amount and also assist the ball. So last season, 14.7 points a game, 4.8 rebounds, 3.9 assists, 2.2 threes a game, and 43% from the field. So right here, Will Barton going to Washington. They obviously need some scoring help here. And he's a guy that definitely either could start at the two guard with a three or come off the bench and score. I know Bradley Beal just opted out moments ago here, but he's most likely going to get a new extension and re-sign here with the Wizards for bigger money and long-term deal. But anyway, Will Barton, no matter where this guy goes, he could be an option scoring the basketball. And right here, going into fantasy drafts next season, I think Barton is going to be a decent player once again. And he's a guy I'll probably target anywhere from the 7th to the 10th round range. And Washington's a good spot. I know Beal's most likely going to say he's scoring Porzingis. But after that, Kyle Kuzma might get traded as the offseason begins here. And we just got to see how things play out. But I like the landing spot here for Barton. Morris, he could possibly be the starting point guard going into the next season here for the Washington Wizards. So last season, he played great with an expanded role with obviously Jamal out, Murray out with the torn ACL, 12.6 points a game, 3 rebounds, 4.4 assists, 1.7 threes, and 48% from the field here for Monte Morris. So like I mentioned, they don't really have a point guard here, is the Washington Wizards. They traded Westbrook last offseason to the Los Angeles Lakers, and then trading Spencer Dinwiddie in the Kristaps Porzingis deal at the trade deadline last season. So Morris, I think he's going to go right into the starting point guard position. And his value definitely bumps up if that's going to be the case here for him as the starter for the Washington Wizards. So he's a guy that could bring three-point shooting. He's a guy that could assist the basketball. And he's also a guy who had a good field goal percentage of 48%. So I like the landing spot a lot. His assists are going to go up. I think the scoring's going to go up a little bit here. And he's a guy probably target anywhere from the 8th to the 10th round in your fantasy drafts next season. If we know for sure he's going to play the 25 to 35-minute range. Now, onto the Nuggets side of things, who they're acquiring. KCP, we know he was a world champion and a good role player with the Los Angeles Lakers a few seasons ago, being a good part of that championship team. But last season with the Washington Wizards, it was an all-right season, 13.2 points a game, 3.4 rebounds, 1.9 assists, 1.1 steal, 2.1 threes, and 43% from the field. So right here, he'll be a good role player with Nikola Jokic, obviously, and Jamal Murray, who's going to return off the ACL injury, is a guy who could stand in the corner, hit some threes, and also a guy who's a decent defensive type of player here, but he's not going to shoot the lights out all the time, 43% from the field. But for three-point shooting and some rebounding, I think he's good, but he's also pretty much a 2 or 3 category type of fantasy player. So he's a guy I would target probably later in my fantasy drafts because I think his value actually does take a hit here, going from Washington all the way to Denver in this trade here. But Caldwell-Pope still could be a fantasy factor, and I would target him anywhere from the 10th to the 13th round towards the back end of your fantasy drafts as a guy coming off the bench or a guy to put in utility spot. Because right now, we know they got a lot of guys over in Denver. Jokic, Murray, Aaron Gordon, Michael Porter, if he's going to be healthy this season. So he's going to be the 5th or 6th option on the offense here. And his value definitely takes a hit. And now to Ish Smith, who they got in the deal. Ish Smith, he's bounced around the NBA a lot, but this guy still could play and put up some decent numbers. And last season, he had an expanded role most of the season for the Wizards, especially after Dinwiddie got traded out of town. 6.3 points a game, 2.2 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 43% from the field. So Ish Smith, he's not going to have fantasy value unless something happens to Jamal Murray or something where he goes down with injury once again. But as a backup in the NBA, he's a better real-life player than a fantasy basketball player. He's a guy that could cut to the hoop, drive to the hoop, and he finds the open man. But in terms of scoring the basketball with the 3-ball, he don't do that. And his field goal percentage ain't great. But when this guy gets to the hoop, he's a good finisher. But he's a guy I'm not going to draft or target on my fantasy draft days here if he stays with the Denver Nuggets. He's just a guy that's going to be a good backup and a solid role player coming off the bench 15, 20 minutes possibly. So the Nuggets And the Wizards, they make a nice deal here. No draft picks involved, a nice 2-for-2 deal. And we'll see what all four of these players do in the upcoming 2022-23 season with their new teams.